Deathpixie disclaimer. This video was originally recorded in September 2024. There is swearing and profanity. Sources are listed in the description. This video is not monetized. Any ads you see provide revenue to the hosting site, not the creators. If you made it this far, geez, you have a lot of patience.
Deathpixie dancing on the lip of madness!
Welcome to Shitty PowerPoint Theater. Dignity not included.
All right, we're into your favorite person.
He's definitely not my favorite person.
Oh, look at Brian Mulroney. He was an arrogant prick. There are so many quotes. He also kept tapes of himself, like Nixon. He villainized Pierre Elliot Trudeau on a level that I can't really properly describe. And a big goal of his was to dismantle everything that was done.
Yep.
So you could see where he served from 84 to 93. He became some weird kind of messiah for the conservatives as well. Kind of on par with Margaret Thatcher's messiah status amongst conservatives in Britain. This is interesting. So Mila, I'm not quite sure how to say her last name. Do you know how to say her last name, Crabsworth?
That is a great question.
Yeah. So they had 4 children, including Caroline and Ben Mulroney. What I want to note, though, is he said some really horrific things about Kim Campbell and her husband. About her sleeping with spies and stuff because of what country her husband was from. But Mila, you noticing something about her last name and her possible origins? Yeah. Always interesting when we go accusing people of things, you know? Always interesting when we do that. Especially since Kim Campbell was on his own party. So
yeah.
You know. All right, pros and cons. Let's get these pros out of the way. He opposed the apartheid regime in South Africa. Well, that's not very hard, Mulroney. Military aid for the UN. Oh, yay, you upheld your basic principles as a human being. Canada.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
Canada,
that was impressive for Chad, I have to say.
Canada became the first industrialized country to ratify both the Biodiversity Convention and the Climate Change Convention, and added national parks that passed the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act and the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. So he did a lot of environmental policy stuff, which again, if you go and look at the cons, it's a lot of feel-good stuff that no one's really going to argue with to kind of cover up the asshole things that you're doing. The reason why I'm mentioning this is y'all should start seeing this as being a bit of a pattern if you've been paying attention to politics in North America for the past 40 years, because this is where we're seeing that pattern happening. His external affairs minister was Joe Clark. And he was, again, the first of the foreign ministers to land in the previously isolated Ethiopia. And I spoke about that when we talked about Clark. Canada became the first Western nation to recognize Ukraine as an independent country. Oh my goodness, what is common in the news right now? I wonder. How topical. He passed Bill C-15, which was bringing greater protection to child victims and witnesses, and also criminalized sexual touching. He also, in 1988, Ethel Blondin Andrew was the first Indigenous woman elected to the House of Commons. He did issue an apology on behalf of the Canadian government for the Japanese-Canadian internment during World War II and provided a $300 million compensation package. All right. So that's good. That's nice. So let's go into the cons. So the Meech Lake Accords and the Charlottetown Accords, these were constitutional amendments that would have decentralized many social services, and that would have had negative impacts for minorities and women. It did fail to pass. That's the thing. When we talk about the Meech Lake and Charlottetown Accords, there's a lot about, well, Quebec would have gotten this, Quebec would have gotten that. Yeah, and it would have decentralized social services, which would have made it, people are suddenly not going to have those social services that they rely on. It gets, there's a transition period for corporations. There is no transition period for the people. And that would have been pretty awful. His handling of the Air India Flight 182 bombing in 1995, it is the largest mass killing in Canadian history. Questions still remain as to why warnings were not taken more seriously and how events leading to that bombing could have been prevented. So the handling was not good. He canceled the National Energy Program. Excuse me?
Would be great idea to have some sort of centralized power to deal with energy. Just in general, it's kind of an important natural resource.
The CF-18 servicing moved from Manitoba to Quebec. So his government had very little experience. It led to a lot of conflicts of interest and scandals. A lot of them.
Some of which are mentioned here, most of which are not.
Yeah.
But if you want to go and read into them, it is a treasure trove of fun.
Yeah. It is, so everybody complains about liberals and conflict of interest and scandals, but nobody talks about the conservative ones. Anyway, that's all. I just, you need to make it fair. If you're going to criticize one, you need to criticize the other. The Airbus affair. This occurred under the Mulroney government and involved the Newfoundland Premier Frank Morris. It didn't come to light until years after Mulroney left. Patronage position gaffes. He accused Turner of that. He did the same thing. Privatization of many of Canada's crown corporations. So he sold off 23 of the 61 corporations. Overall, short-term gain over long-term gain and stability in utility services and resources.
Yeah. And again, we're going to let our biases show here a little bit. We are in favor of a strong nationalistic Canada. The privatization of this to corporations in many ways has decentralized the amount of basic protections that we feel that people would be better served under Canada in of itself.
The country's annual deficit actually increased under Mulroney. Oh, what's that? What's that I hear you say? But the Conservatives, they're fiscally conservative, right? They wouldn't do that, right?
Not under Mulroney.
This is our turning point. Right here is our turning point. I want to talk about this. So they complained so much about Pierre Elliot Trudeau's deficits. His deficits...
They were higher. Much higher.
They ballooned to record levels in his last year of office. These deficits grew the national debt dangerously close to the psychological benchmark of 100% of the GDP. 100% of the GDP. Those are facts. So don't start telling me that conservative is fiscally conservative. Look at the track record and look at the mandate. This is where we're seeing a turning point from those earlier prime ministers to today.
To the neoliberalist idea of conservatism.
Exactly.
You would never see Sir JohnAMacdonald do anything that would, say, privatize Canada's crown corporations. Okay?
Yeah,
never say it.
Mulroney made an order in council allowing the establishment of the Amex Bank of Canada. I do believe that there was a major issue with that bank, but I'm not recalling it right now. A lot of the things that he did fiscally are covered in the term Reaganomics or trickle-down economics, and you can find so many resources on that. There was the Canada-United States Free Trade Agreement that was very controversial and not well done.
Yeah.
He introduced Bill C-43, which would limit abortions only to pregnancies that a doctor determined would be life-threatening. It passed 3 readings but was stopped by a Senate vote when PC female senators joined the Liberals and voted against it. This was the first time in 30 years something was stopped at the Senate. So I need you to understand that was a big deal, and I think is especially topical today, which is why I mentioned it. He decided to conduct a European farewell tour using Canadian federal funds because he hadn't used up enough money, and he fractured the electoral coalition. So, one positive, 1989, the final residential school in Manitoba closed. Now you know. It is really hard to find decent quotes of this man. He was arrogant as hell. In politics, madame, you need 2 things: friends, but above all, an enemy. We're really seeing politics as a sport now.
Yeah. And he was the person, at least in Canada, who really sort of brought that to the forefront with quotes like this.
Yep. I will say, the magazine Frank decided to they consider themselves satire, but what they did was they decided in 1991 to run a satirical advertisement contest for inviting young Tories to deflower Caroline Mulroney. Which,
wow.
That's really inappropriate. Guys, that's inappropriate. Also, hey, anyone remember countdown clocks and how inappropriate those were? So, yeah. Delightful. He had a close personal relationship with U.S. President Ronald Reagan, so that should tell you enough about that.
Hence the adoption of Reaganomics.
Yep. He was walking ego is the best way I can describe him. His son, Ben Mulroney, is a popular TV host in Canada. And I'm sure it must have burned Prime Minister Mulroney that his son didn't go into politics like Trudeau's son. So, spite for the win. Anyway, whether you agree with our solutions or not, none will accuse us, I think, of having chosen to evade our responsibilities by sidestepping the most controversial issues of our time. Trudeau's contribution was not to build Canada, but destroy it, and I have come in to save it. Nobody has achievements like this. You cannot name a Canadian Prime Minister who has done as many significant things as I did because there are none. I'm sorry, but we just went through a lot of them.
Yeah, I can think of at least 3, and one of them was in for a year.
He also quite liked Margaret Thatcher, by the way. He liked Ronald Reagan. Some things that he said after the fact. I am not denying anything I did not say. And look, I was a big brassy guy who won and won big. I did what I wanted. Every cabinet minister gets a mission statement from the prime minister. And there's so much vibrato and not in a good way. One of my favorites is former Ontario Premier David Peterson said of him, "I would never trust or respect him. He is a pathological liar. In fairness, I don't believe he knows he's lying." Oh God, you couldn't take anything he said at face value. His essential Achilles heel is his baloney. There you go. So I bet you're wondering what qualified him to be leader, right?
And we don't know.
Well, he was a youth delegate and attended the PC Leadership Convention in Ottawa. He joined the Youth for Diefenbaker Committee, which was led by Ted Rogers. He won several public speaking contests at various universities. He assisted the national election campaign at the local level in Nova Scotia. He got a degree in political science. He first pursued a law degree in Dalhousie. And then he went to Université Laval in Quebec City to continue his studies. Throughout, he's just started befriending conservative municipal and provincial leaders left, right, and center, helping them with campaigns. It continues. His professional reputation was further enhanced when he ended a strike that was considered impossible to resolve at a Montreal newspaper. In doing so, Mulroney and the paper's owner became friends. After initial difficulties, Mulroney's reputation as firm and his firm steadily increased. He was made partner. Went to the leadership race. His big break came during the Cliche Commission, which showed mafia infiltration of unions. He was bitter about his loss and turned down serving under Clark. He was just annoyed. He became vice president and president of the Iron Ore Company of Canada. Successfully negotiated closing of different mines, winning a generous settlement for affected workers. So it's interesting there. Then he goes back. House of Commons. The Canadian Press actually named Mulroney Newsmaker of the Year for 2 years in a row. He won the largest majority government and the second largest majority in Canada. Became prime minister. Lost his PC government lost official party status in the election after him, and Mulroney claimed he was not responsible for that and blamed everything on Kim Campbell. Blamed absolutely everything on her and her boyfriend. He, in fact, in the quote-unquote secret Mulroney tapes, it was revealed that he said of her, throughout the whole goddamn thing, she's been screwing around with this Russian guy. This guy was sneaking into hotel rooms and the campaign bus. He also said it was the most incompetent campaign I've seen in my life. He totally set Kim Campbell up, by the way. He left, Kim Campbell came in to fill that slot. And this is what he said about his own colleague. He became an international business consultant, no surprise here, sat on the board of directors for multiple corporations, chairman of multiple places. He didn't like Canada strengthening relations with China, Russia, and Germany, and felt that Canada should just stay with the US. There's a lot of stuff that he did after the fact. What's odd, though, is he actually praised Prime Minister Justintrudeau's handling of negotiations of the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, as well as his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, and he also criticized former U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that Donald Trump was out to sabotage Canada. In his memoirs, he actually went out of his way to slander Pierre Elliot Trudeau for his lack of World War II service. He did die recently, so you know. Anything you'd like to add?
That should pretty well do it for me. Also, it's interesting to note, this man is actually the first PM in our lifetimes. This is the... Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, that's cool. Yeah,
Yep.
we're getting into recent history now, folks.
Hey, this is Trapdoor Crabsworth for deathpixie. If you liked our content, please like this video and subscribe. And if you want to see more, just check out our links in the description. Do it. Do it or Miri will kill you.